I'm Raewyn. I'm the founder of WellWorks, and I am here with Scott Robinson, the founder of Meditate and Mingle, and he's also known as the Yogibanker. So, Scott, welcome.
Thank you, Ray.
Really good to see you. The last Meditate and Mingle was a couple of weeks ago, and I left feeling very energized and excited about it. And
wonderful.
We've got one coming up soon, right?
Next Tuesday night at 6:30 at Space 88. And I just met the owner today, had a good chat about his program and what he wants to do with the space. And yeah, I feel very fortunate to find Space 88 after a short sojourn since we first started Meditate and Mingle. It was like, just finding the right space is part of it. There's plenty of spaces to hire out there in London, but they kind of have the right energy and vibe, and I was very lucky to find that, and met the owner, and we've had 2 successful events. Everyone's enjoyed the space that we create and we hold for everyone, and even the discussion that we have is very interesting in terms of people very, very organic and sharing how they feel, and it's been a wonderful experience.
I mean, I can testify to that because I've been there. And I've been there at the inception of Meditate and Mingle. So tell us a little bit about when it started, how it started, why it started, what brought you into this space. That's quite a lot of questions. So
I started back in June 2007. And, since I started Yogibanker and everything else, I was always like, how can I find a space to hold for fellow city professionals to come together to meditate? And it's always been in the back of my mind somewhere. And I guess when you visualize something enough, it more often than not, it comes into fruition. And then we were just, we saw the space in Shoreditch, and it was a wonderful space where we were. And it was like, wow, we've got to really go for this. As soon as we saw the space, it was wonderful, and we just knew instantly that was the vibe that we wanted to create. 42 acres, the name of the place. Some of you may be familiar with that. They're originally a retreat centre based in, I think, Somerset or somewhere in Wales, and now create a co-working space turned into an event space in the evenings.
Yeah, it's an old church that they converted. It was an old church, and it basically has got like stained glass windows and lots of light and lots of plants and, those high ceilings, and it just feels very spacious and quite lovely.
Yeah, exactly. It's the light, it was just the ambience of the place together with this very strong environmental vibe, plants and, space for tea and herbal drinks and so forth. And we instantly gravitated towards that. And we started that back in 2017. We had 6 successful events. We got to the end of the year. We wanted to recalibrate. We felt that the space, even though it was wonderful, was actually probably a little bit too big for the space that we wanted to create. Something a little bit more intimate, and also affordable as well. So, a lot of soul searching last year. Back in my mind, got to get this going. Got to find the right space. And then this, as things more often in life happen, just randomly popped up through a search for another space I was looking to find for yoga. And this. As soon as I went there, I went, wow, I've really got to secure this spot. And I was there today, and the guy was sort of saying, someone else wants that spot. And I said, well, it's ours now. And he was like, yeah. So yeah,
you claimed it. So, you declared that it was yours, and then it was, yeah.
Yeah, I think when you see things, you just got to go for it, right? It's just like there's no hesitation in these things. And as soon as I found that spot, it was a space, and together the owner he's trying to create this very conscious spiritual vibe. It's not necessarily about making money. It's about offering something which is accessible for people to start and hold. So I gravitated with the owner a lot, and it's been wonderful to have that space and look forward to building upon that.
So that's awesome that you've just touched on something that I think is probably missing from a lot of what I've seen in the commercial meditation space. So just to give people a little bit of background about where I come from with this. So I led Wellbeing at Barclays for 6 years. We started hosting mindfulness-based meditation courses for employees back in 2012. And lots of vendors obviously gravitated to a bank that was offering this. So I got to see quite a lot of, in the early days before mindfulness became the way that it is now. It's now, sort of like 8 years later. And things are, there's quite a lot of, I call them cowboys out there. Some people who want to cash in on, on a trend.
Yeah.
And it's easy to become very disillusioned by that. And you were asking me before we hit the record button if I was in New York, and I said no, because I think you'd seen one of my Instagram photos. I'd been at a meditation studio in New York, and it was for a Saturday morning. It's a very beautiful, aesthetically pleasing looking space. However, I remember coming out of it feeling very what's the word? Just sort of like disconnected and not connected to it. There were lots of people in the room. There may be about 20 of us that morning, but there was no sense of community. There was no sense of connection. And the thing that I feel that is, that I think is integral to meditation and to, in general, well, to meditation, it's about reconnecting with yourself and ideally connecting with your compassion and being able to connect with the people around you, because we know that it activates certain parts of the brain that allow that facilitate connection. And that obviously improves things like, if we want to get into, from a corporate working perspective or workplace perspective, that improves things like team dynamics and people pulling together and functioning cohesively and coherently. Now, the thing about Meditate and Mingle that I wanted to highlight, and that's why I was so excited to interview you, because after the experience in March, I came out of there like buzzing, like on an oxytocin high. And so everyone was so like, and I think you can remember like the conversations that happened after we'd all finished meditating. We all kind of hung around for about maybe another hour, an hour and a half. Because you start at 7 quite promptly. You get everybody together by 6:30, and then at 7 o'clock we begin, and it's a guided meditation. And about 20 past 7, 7:30, it's all over, and then everyone kind of hung. I think they threw us all out at 9 p.m. We ended up staying there for about another hour and a half, and the discussion that came out of it was very deep, conscious, connected. And I don't know if that's something that you have sought to create, or if that's just a consequence of what you've decided to do. Was it your intention to create that kind of event or that sort of space in London?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, I think on the discussion side, I've always felt that it was important that, if you live a life in the city and, you traditionally, as working in Barclays, it's more of a very macho culture and so forth. And there are a lot of people in these organizations who are different or lead different lives, but come together in a suit, come to work every day in a suit and get on with their life, but seek refuge in places where they can meditate or do yoga or whatever their wellness practice is. So my idea was to actually create this space and hold that space for like-minded people to come together, like myself and yourself. And the discussion part was actually why we thought what we could have improved on last time was actually involve more of this discussion amongst people, but giving them an opportunity to speak. And I think actually, especially after a meditation where you really connect with yourself on a very deep inward level, the things that come out afterwards is very interesting. And that's what I found the most interesting part about Meditate and Mingle is the conversations that you have afterwards. There's a sense of intimacy that's very hard to describe, but because you just shared this experience together, and then something's happened on a kind of brainwave level, and you start opening up about things which are important to you, and you make new connections and sometimes even new friends. So to me, that was just an organic thing. I very much wanted to open the floor, not about the host necessarily. It's about actually everyone there together sharing that experience and how they feel. And it was great afterwards. There was a conversation on email and people meeting up and sharing things amongst each other, which is so important these days because we live these worlds which to some extent we're also online, and it's so good to come together and to meet and discuss and share honest opinions about what's important to them.
I couldn't put that better. And I've just been at the Biohackers Conference here in LA, and Sean Stevenson, who is the founder of the Model Health Show, he was citing research about surrounding yourself with more like-minded people, because when you walk into a room, your neurons actually start to mirror the people around you. So if you want to be, and I think what you were just talking about, so this is obviously from a neuroscience point of view, which I've always been into, studying neuropsychology. What you've just been talking about that happens after we all meditate in a group, it's very palpable, even though it's not, you can't see it, but you can definitely feel it, because when I meditate on my own, yes, it's lovely, but in a lot of ways, I kind of think and this is probably going to sound wrong, but it's like, okay, I've done what I've had to do. Now it's time to move on to the next thing. When you're in the group setting, there's definitely a sense of like, I don't really want this to end. This is very nice. And again, maybe it's because you're connected by all these people around you who are all vibrating at the same sort of level, same sort of frequency, all seeking potentially all of the same things as well. All seeking connection, because, you know, I've been in London for 18 years, spending more and more time out of it recently, and really enjoying that, because I find when I come back, I start feeling very dehumanized. And I think maybe it's because of the pace that it functions at. It's very, very hectic. It's very cramped. And again, there's some research recently from a TED Talk, and I can't remember exactly the name of it. I saw it recently, where people in big cities, you know, when they're surrounded by glass and steel and concrete, and they're not surrounded by nature, the brain doesn't know how to interpret that. So it sends the brain into a sympathetic nervous state. So the nervous system becomes very stressed. So you produce more cortisol. So that's why I think, you know, people end up in that kind of fight or flight mode all the time, which is why it's not easy for them to connect with others, because they're literally in defense mode constantly. But when you create a space like Meditate and Mingle, where, you know, again, you have soft lighting, there's tea, there's connection, with 42 acres, there was a lot of greenery. 42 acres was like a little oasis in the middle of Shoreditch, which is very much a concrete jungle. You know, and there's a lot of green, and the plants, they're giving off oxygen. There were a lot of, like, you know, air plants, plants that would actually give back oxygen to us, and that would purify the air. Creating those sorts of spaces where people can, where our brains in their primitive forms can actually recognize, I can relax, I can breathe, I can, you know, you can just be more grounded. I think. Yeah,
it's exactly that, Ray. It's like, as you described, we all have our meditation practice, but it's like, okay, it's like I get up, or I come home from work, I make space to meditate, and then I get on with my day or whatever I need to do. It's like, that's great. That's great that you created the space, but it's almost like
a little bit perfunctory.
You know, and you're fitting it in with your day, as opposed to, how about having an experience, you know? I sometimes describe this, and when I'm promoting it, as a group meditation and socializing experience. You know, come and feel this connectedness together. You know what I mean? As opposed to just simply going into a space and meditating and leaving, and as you maybe felt a little bit disconnected. And it's interesting you talk about that. There was an article this morning on I discovered online, is about, you know, what's happening in mindfulness now. You know, it's becoming such a buzzword that it's sometimes lost its roots. You know, it's all about the way the capitalist society promotes it. It's all about the individual and the self. But actually, if you look at the core of mindfulness, what this article is saying, there's some truth to it. When it goes back to its Buddhist traditions, there is no self. But at the same time, we look about society as a whole, how we're all interconnected. And so this whole idea of mindfulness has shifted from no self to the self. And what's causing all these underlying anxiety and depression? You know, why are we so stressed, as you described, this flight mode, where we're constantly just, you know, almost a state where we are being so sensitized by our environment, you know, and it's becoming to the point where we often need to think about what's happening to ourselves as a result of this online digital world and the highly competitive world that we live in. So actually, Meditate and Mingle is actually having a space to just step back from all of that, right, and connect with your fellow beings, you know, and just sometimes just not forgetting or escaping from what's going on, but actually just holding a different space, you know, because I've had that many times. I've gone in there not feeling so great myself, but actually just suddenly, as a host or whatever, just feeling great about things, and everything else just seemed irrelevant or less important after that experience. And then I was about to go back in and the next day and get on with things. So it's something unique I'm looking to build upon, and you know, we've had 2 wonderful events so far, and you know, we're looking to evolve this concept further. So maybe some pop-ups, or you know, around London and overseas. Who knows where that could go.
Awesome. I love the vision. I love that you're so open to anything. And I guess the intention behind it, from everything that you've said to me, it's never been about, you know, capitalizing on the trend, but it's literally about fostering connection. And that's what's really, I think personally, that is what's important. And that's the whole reason why you and I do what we do. because we're not really too bothered about the fact that we need, yes, obviously everybody needs to pay bills and make money, but at the end of the day, we want to improve people's lives. We want to improve the communities around us and create that sense of we are human. And if we can tap into our potential through, closing our eyes, connecting with our breaths, reconnecting with ourselves, because I think so much of the anxiety in the world and depression, from everything that I see as a therapist and as a functional medicine coach, it's people who are disconnected from themselves, from their food, from everything that's organic about being human, right? Disconnected from their breath. Like that's the most basic thing that there is, just being able to reconnect with breathing is so important. And I always I make a joke about it. I say, breathing is cheaper than a Xanax. It's if you could just sit down and focus and teach yourself to focus, because that's the one thing that in our big city lives, in the corporate world, we have got cultural ADHD. Our brains are constantly wired. Wi-Fi, as I'm finding out from this conference, is probably going to be the death of humanity, 5G, all these things, because it's actually doing to us the same thing that food allergies do to us. It's frying our brains and our guts and damaging us on a cellular level. Where we're actually not able to, and it's killing off empathy as well by being so connected to the phones and the world within our phones and our smart devices. We're completely disconnected and lacking in compassion for the people around us, and we're just becoming oblivious to that. And I saw something really sad this morning about a baby dolphin that got pulled out of the ocean so everyone could take a selfie with it. And it was this whole beach of people taking selfies, and the dolphin died because it wasn't in water. So again, we've lost our humanity because we're so connected to our phones, and because we want to capture every moment rather than being in the moment. We don't need to capture the moment. We have to be in the moment. So, and that's what I find so powerful about what you're doing and what other people like you, I know your partner, Suzanne, is doing great things as well. She does a lot of wonderful work with women and yoga. And she's got some exciting things coming up. And I think, is she not going to be part of the next Meditate and Mingle?
Yeah, she's hosting next week. So she'll be back in London after a few weeks in Mallorca, coming back on Saturday and then hosting it next Tuesday with myself. So she's excited. She was part of the original vision and still is a big part of that. So, we look forward to welcoming her back and her energy. She's been a big part of the vision. Actually, we were talking, I remember we were going to a yoga workshop one afternoon in Islington, and she goes, "What shall we call it?" She said, "Meditate and Mingle." I said, "Yeah." It was brilliant, genius. You know what I mean? So it was let's do it, right? And actually, interesting enough, you Google online, you can see other people have got a similar idea, right? But this whole Meditate and Mingle idea, right? It rhymes and everything else, right? So yeah, it's she'll be back on Tuesday, and she's really looking forward to it.
Yeah, well, I'm sure London's looking forward to having her back as well, and so are you. I'm sure that's you're probably excited about having her host. I think it's really beautiful as well that you both meditate together. I don't think there are not that many couples that I'm aware of that do that. And I think it must be something that is quite bonding and keeps your relationship connected.
Yeah, I think so. On the yoga and the meditation, I think it's nice to have that common bond, and we move in different rhythms, but it's to have that time where we share that space. It's really great, and even means dragging her out of bed early in the morning when I go to work and come and get up and meditate. Often her own choice, right? And she does that, right? It's nice.
That's awesome. So we've got about 10 minutes left. Maybe you could just tell me a little bit about when you started meditating and what brought you to it.
Yeah, good question. So my first experiences of meditation, I think, were roughly 2006, 2007, and actually came through a spiritual, I guess you call him a guru, right? I guess he was a guide to me, where I became quite interested in Reiki, the hands-on energy healing. And he does Reiki, but he's very connected on the very spiritual level, so meditation is part of that. So he slowly started introducing me to meditation. I'd go to his sessions of Reiki, and we talk a lot and meditation was part of that. And then I sort of became more interested in the meditation and became curious about hearing lots of things about transcendental meditation. which is a more of a Vedic mantra-based style. And I did a course in London. You can do that. A lot of centres around, and there are other places that offer the similar style too. So I did that, and I just became a regular part of my life since then. I don't meditate every day. I try, but sometimes it just doesn't happen. Like everyone, I think if you're honest enough to know that it's, sometimes we live in this world where, you read someone, I've been doing yoga every day for 30 days, or I have doing meditation, I meditate daily, and you have this ideal of someone. And it's something that's like, it's quite scary, or kind of like, that's not for me, because someone thinks I can't do that. I think we introduce a bit of human nature to that, where actually you just do your best, Sometimes you just don't have the time, or you miss something. This morning I missed my yoga session because I spent 3 hours taking photos in London yesterday. I was completely shattered, right? My body was tired, but I didn't miss my meditation session, right? So, I kind of prioritize and I do what I can. So, and since this journey of doing meditation, it's interesting. There's the Vedic style, and I did a course on yoga for sports recently, and the guy was. Actually, it was great. He really introduced the mental aspect, and he was introducing me different styles of meditation and different practices. And that's the great thing about Meditate and Mingle. We're not kind of like dogma. You must meditate this way. You must sit still. You must put your hands here. You must breathe this way. There's a sense of curiosity. There'll be a guided meditation, but it may not be the same every week. Every time. And we're open to that. We're open to new people coming and introducing their style, and for guests to be curious and interested about meditation, because there's a lot of different styles or different practices. I guess you could probably describe it in 2 or 3 different main ways, but end of the day, meditation can mean a lot to many different people, right? And so my practice generally is a Vedic style. It's based on the mantra I find most effective in terms of the place I want to get to. But other people may need a more of a visualization-based practice, more breathing-based practice, and whatever works. And that Meditate and Mingle is no set way. You must come and you must meditate this way. It's like, please come, please be curious, please be open-minded, sit and enjoy the experience.
Yeah. I love that you mentioned that a mantra-based meditation is the thing that works for you, because that when I started in 2001 with Deva Premal. I don't know if you're familiar with her. She's a German, she used to live on a commune with an Osho commune. And she's kind of popularized mantras and turned them into more, they sound like Enya.
Really?
That's her vibe. Like, it's just lots of layered harmonies, and she's taken mantras like old Sanskrit mantras and Buddhist mantras and has just made them it's Western, but also obviously there's an element of sitar and Eastern influences in it. It's very beautiful, very heavenly sounding music, and I've been following her around since 2001. But that's how I got into meditation, by listening to her mantras. And amazing. I still do that. I still, the Gayatri mantra is one of the things that I use to start my day before anything else.
I love the Gayatri mantra.
I love the Gayatri mantra. Obviously, it's not something that in a corporate working environment, it's not something you're necessarily going to bring in. But what can work really nicely is to teach people that the idea of an affirmation or a mantra or some word that they can focus on, that they want to choose or set as an intention for their meditation is, it's going to help them, because our minds, trying to quiet a mind is very difficult. It's almost impossible. So, when we talk about monkey mind and your mind jumping from thought to thought to thought, having something to anchor to, I find very effective. And I do have a little bit of ADHD brain. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm always thinking up the next new thing, the next new thing, the next new thing. And, I wake up at like 4 o'clock in the morning with ideas, and which is why I need to meditate first thing, because if I don't, the rest of the day, I'll feel quite frazzled. But it's the one thing that kind of brings my brain back into coherence and my body back into coherence. And a lot of the time, when we're on our phones a lot, and we've got multiple devices. This is the other thing about the way that we live now. You've got a laptop, you've got an iPad, you've got an iPhone, you probably have a work phone. So you've got at least 3 or 4 devices that you're connected to at any one time. And they all have various alerts, and they're constantly sending us into hypervigilance mode. Yes, we live in cities, and that's disruptive to our nervous systems, all the concrete and the glass and steel. And then we've got these devices that have us completely disconnected from ourselves and from our bodies and our breaths. So when
Yeah.
we're on the phones, there's a lot of research that's showing that people who are using their phones constantly, they actually stop breathing. So they're not breathing properly. They're and everything is happening in this upper chest cavity. But when you pause to meditate, you're able to slow the breath down, to reconnect with the body, to bring that brain and body back into balance. And that slow, deep belly breathing that we always try to encourage everybody to do. And I'm learning a lot now through, funnily enough, through functional dentistry about the fact that when we breathe through our mouths, we increase our levels of anxiety. So we need to be practicing more nose breathing. And I know that's quite a pranayama type of exercise as well. So a nose breathe in through the nose, out through the nose, as opposed to out through the mouth, because then that's...
the nose is designed for breathing, right? The mouth's for eating, right? If you look at it.
Exactly. I mean, it sounds like common sense, but we don't do it. And a lot of ADHD that I'm finding out through all this research is that a lot of ADHD is caused by people who are mouth breathers. Sometimes they've got a structural problem and they need to work with an osteopath or a chiropractor to readjust that, or even a functional dentist who can adjust what's going on with their mouth. But teaching people how to breathe properly is a big part of meditation, of reconnecting with that breath, because it stimulates that parasympathetic nervous system and brings everything back. I always talk about it's like your dial is ramped up, and then when you start to slow breathe, it just turns everything down. And I don't know if this happens to you when you meditate, but do you ever look through? I always feel like I've got a movie screen right through here. So I actually feel like my brain wave, I actually see them slow down. I don't know if anybody else experiences that, but before I start to meditate, everything's kind of all spotty and there's light all over and it's all kind of scattered. And then by the end of it, everything's just sort of very, very slow, very even. And I can just kind of see it pulsing very gently. Don't know if that happens to anyone else, but...
kind of similar. There's a sense of, I don't know, there's a really steadiness and
exactly
that you created, right? And it's very clear and light. They talk in yoga about these stages and this light that you often experience, and that's more you're connected to your higher self, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the beautiful thing about that, even though it's not necessarily the purpose of us meditating, but it's a consequence of it, when you're connected to that, things start to flow, I think, more easily in your life. And it's not that you're never going to have problems. And I'm not saying that meditation is a panacea for dealing with all your stuff. Like if you're in a bad situation or a bad job or a bad relationship, you can't meditate your way out of it. But what it might do is give you the clarity to realize, okay, am I showing myself self-love by staying in this situation? And might give you the strength to be able to distance yourself, walk away, put some boundaries, do whatever it is that you need to do. I know that was a thing for me. I was leading a wellbeing program and I was meditating for 2 hours a day just to be able to deal, ironically, with the job, because it was very hard, because you're trying to push the needle in an environment that was very resistant to anything complementary, alternative, functional. It was very, very status quo and kind of stuck in the 80s. And I kept trying to move things past that and was getting really frustrated with it. And I meditated maybe for about 2 years before I decided, because I'm well, I've got to do this job. And, and to me, it was my mission, my calling. But then I realized it's actually going to suck the life out of me if I carry on. And being able to meditate helped me cope with it. But at the same time, it wasn't going to solve all my problems. I couldn't stay in that space. I saw that I'd outgrown it. And sometimes, I know some people recommend it as sort of, there are apps that say, oh, meditation will help you do this, it'll help you do that. And yes, it will, but it's not going to be the answer to all your problems. It's going to help facilitate growth, I think.
Yeah, I think that's really important. There's so much in the wellness world today about, you must do this or do this to achieve a better life, or, it's all about solving problems, right? And doing this to solve your problems. And that can create a sense of attachment, right? And I think whilst my own case coming to wellness or well-being through a sense of personal difficulties, that was a process that took many years, right? And that doesn't happen overnight. So it's really about finding a relationship with your practice. And as you said, you have your ups and downs too, right? Like everyone does. And it's not going to solve all your problems at work or with your partner necessarily, or this. It gives you a better space to deal with those issues, right? I think that's the best thing about meditation is just creates that space. And then you've got a different way of relating to that space. Yoga is all about steadiness in that good space. And once you're in that good space, you can better relate to whatever you're having to deal with. Yeah, it's not necessarily going to make that problem go away, but maybe you'll come from a different perspective or see a different angle or whatever, or you become less reactive to that situation. And then ultimately the situation will resolve itself one way or the other. Mm-hmm. But meditation is the means by which you can better deal with whatever you need to in your life.
I love that what you just said there about being less reactive, because I think so much of everything that we do, and even in business, there's always like a fire drill. We're always kind of in fire drill mode, particularly in a working environment, and we're not necessarily giving ourselves a chance to step back and actually consider all the angles, all the options. And that's one of the things that I love about being able to pause and breathe, because you get a chance to have perspective and to actually think about, okay, what would be the best thing, rather than just kind of like ending up in that knee-jerk sort of space. Believe it or not, we're up to time now. Honestly, I could keep going.
Wow.
Yeah, half an hour just flew by. I learned something this weekend that someone said it, and I can't remember who. I think it was the MC at the conference. And when we close our eyes, that's when we can truly see. And that's what I would like to leave everybody with. So before we go, maybe you just want to lead us through, a 60-second breathing exercise to help us reconnect with our breath.
Sure. Thanks, Ray. So it's a pleasure. So thanks, everyone. So basically sit upright in your seat wherever you are. If you're on a couch, maybe just find a nice seated upright position, hands comfortable on the chest, maybe shoulders roll back a little bit, nice neutral spine. And just close your eyes. Find that connectedness, as Ray was talking about earlier, through your eyes closed. Maybe bring your attention or awareness to the space between the eyes and the eyebrow, as if there's like a mesh between the eyes. They call that the third eye. And just allow the breath to start to inhale through the nostrils, allowing the chest, the rib cage, the upper abdomen, and the lower abdomen just to expand. And then gently just allow the abdomen just to gently contract or lower down. And allow the ribs and the chest to gently exhale, just coming back to the center. Just notice your breath, always coming back to a point of mindfulness of who you are and where you are. Let's do that one more time. So just allow the breath to expand through the nose, through the chest, through the abdomen. And gently on the exhale, just allow the breath just to gently deflate, and allowing the chest just to gently draw up and in. Allow the rib cage and the chest. And just let everything be. Just find a nice rhythm with your breath. Allowing a sense of expansion and energy to come into the body. And every time you exhale, just have a feeling of totally letting go. Just every time the mind wanders, just bring it back to that point of focus or attention between the eyes or the eyebrows, where we really just start connecting with ourselves again. Just allow yourself just to let everything go. Just find a nice, steady space and rhythm with your breath. And then whenever you're ready, just maybe relax the hands, relax the shoulders, release the feet. Just allow yourself to come back. And just open your eyes, coming back to the space.